All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to start, if that's okay with everybody, a few minutes early. My name is Mark Biedron. I'm the immediate past president of the New Jersey State Board of Education. I spent 6 years on the board. President is 3. I also just co-chaired Governor Murphy's Education Access and Opportunity Transition Team. Spent 3 months doing that, wrote a 10-page report, which we handed to the governor on January 1, on all the educational initiatives, both higher ed and K-12, that we thought should happen in the first 6 to 8 months of the new administration. I also co-chaired the New Jersey Juvenile Justice Educational Task Force, where we look into and try to solve the school-to-prison pipeline. A very interesting subject, not one for today's discussion maybe, but some really, really important work. I'm here. My co-presenter, Christy Ty from Junior Achievement, is on her way. We were just down in Trenton giving a presentation. We're going to talk about, the presentation today is going to be sort of divided into 3 parts. First, the second part will be all of what Junior Achievement does, how we come into community colleges, businesses, and help students understand soft skills. Communication, collaboration, creativity, all the soft skills and the underlying social emotional skills that are so important. We're going to go over some exercises, see how we do that. Before that, I'd like to talk about, and if there's any point in my conversation that anyone wants to raise their hand, disagree with me, think I'm crazy, please do so. I'd love to have interactive conversations. But the first part of the conversation is going to really be a little history lesson, like how did we get here? Why are we here? We're going to do that first, talk a little bit about the history of education, where we're at right now, then we'll dive into the Junior Achievement work, and then we will have a question and answer period at the end of the presentation. I just came back from San Antonio, Texas. I was at the National School Boards Association National Conference. It was a 5-day conference, 5,000 school board members from all over the country, Alaska, all states, and pretty much everybody at this conference was saying this: we are at a pivotal moment in education. We are really at a crossroads, right? I think everyone's saying today that we really have to redefine, talk about, understand, what does it mean to be educated today? What does that look like? What skills and habits of mind do we want all the students that are walking out the door in 12th grade to have to be successful in this world we're talking about at this conference, in this highly technological, fast-paced, changing world? When I grew up back in the 60s and 70s, education was all about content and information, because the content and information you need to be career and college ready stayed the same. The 40s, the 50s, the 60s, all the jobs were the same, the questions were the same, the problems were the same. So here's what you need. Put it down in the test. Good luck. Have fun. Today, my 16-year-old daughter can get all the content and information she needs by pressing a button. The job she goes into probably doesn't exist right now. So content and information are not going to make her successful stepping into something that doesn't exist yet. What will? Well, we'll talk about these later. These soft skills, the communication skills, the collaboration skills, the listening skills, problem solving, critical thinking. If you look at the way we adults try to do all those things now, for the most part, we're not that very good at it, because we were not intentionally educated to understand those things. Communication is an art. It really does. And in order to be a good communicator, you have to understand social emotional skills. You have to understand empathy. How are you going to stay in a conversation with someone who is totally on the opposite side of the fence as you are, that could be getting you very upset, still stay in that conversation and come out with that one action moving forward, which is what communication means. You take it back to the Latin, it means to move forward with one action. So, we are at a crossroads. So let's just look at a little history. So back in the day, in 1700s, we were in the agricultural economy. We thought a K-8 education was good enough for all our kids to get out and work in the field. And what skills did they need to work in the field? What did we need? It was manual labor. That was pretty much it. You wanted to know probably some basic math and language, but that's kind of what we thought was the social right for our children. Then we move into the first industrial revolution, where water and steam was our power. Still, I mean, you know, pretty much manual labor, not much creative thinking going on there, not much problem solving. Pretty much every day was the same thing. We move right along into the second industrial revolution. Electrical power, assembly line. I am. Good. So again, you know, pretty much in school, you know, we're kind of in the K-12 model now, and you know, we are telling our students, here's what you need to be in that factory, to be that secretary, to be that manager. By the way, please don't think out of the box. You don't need to be creative. That's what you need to be successful. The third industrial revolution, which started back in the 80s with the computer and the cell phone and everything, things started to change. Things started to change very, very fast. And we have, you know, automated production, and new problems started coming up, new questions. And now, we are in the fourth industrial revolution with advanced robotics, artificial intelligence. Things are going very, very quickly, and we have to understand what the students are going to need to be successful in this fourth industrial revolution. Now, I'm out talking to educators, and let me just ask, how many are in the K-12 world here? Okay, in the community college world or the higher ed world? Okay, good. So, I mean, there's been a survey out there that was done for community college. And basically, it was said that 80% of the K-12 students landing on the doorstep of community colleges need remedial courses. There was another survey that said, done by the New Jersey Business and Industry Association, where they asked employers, how are your prospective employees, how do they look when they come? 80% of them said they don't have the employability skills necessary to do the job. I go out and talk to CEOs, I go out to talk to HR people, they say, listen, you can send me that straight A student, right? You can send me that student that's got high technological savvy. But if that student can't communicate, written and oral, I'm not giving them the job. And if I give them the job and they can't work in a team, they're going to get fired. And they said, it is simple as that. I can teach them everything they need to know about my business. Now, there are obviously, you know, certain things that we want our kids to know in the STEM world and technology. That's really, really important. But these underlying skills in our K-12 world are things that we have not been very good at teaching all our students. Now, New Jersey, whether you know it or not, is the NAEP scores just came out 2 days ago. We're tied now for #1 in education in the country based on NAEP. But if you look at basically the different measurements that come out, we're either 1, 2, or 3, depending on, you know, whose measurement stick you're looking at. And of course, that's thanks to everybody in this room. You know, we really have to change the narrative in this state about how important education is and how important teachers are. And you know, you're doing the most important work on the planet, clearly. We have to change that narrative, and I think the new governor is ready to do that. You know, this is where we're at right now. So we really need to rewrite, you know, the story of education for our children. And we are putting kids into a world that they're not prepared for because we're stuck in the first industrial revolution. That's our model. So our kids learn within a system of education devised for a world that increasingly does not exist, right? So, you know, how are we going to change this in our schools? And again, you know, these surveys that show that there is this huge disconnect between the skills that we're turning out and as a student walks out in 12th grade and the skills that business and you all in higher ed are looking for. And so we have to have a conversation. So you're going to hear, hopefully, in the next couple of months, that we're going to have what we call the K-20 conversation, where we have to get K-12 people, community college people, four-year college people, and business all in the same room and start talking about why we have this big disconnect. And believe it or not, as common sense as that sounds, we really haven't done that yet. And so I definitely want to, before I move on, I want to say that in New Jersey, because we're doing such good, there's a lot of pockets of great work happening in New Jersey. There's a lot of pockets of schools teaching children soft skills, social emotional skills. We have more schools of character in this state than any other state in the United States. And a school of character, if you want to look it up, just www.character.org. It's an organization, a national organization, that has a template to come in and talk about your school culture and climate and how the social emotional learning skills fit in with that. I mean, one of the biggest things we're talking about down in San Antonio was school safety and security. And it's a culture issue. If you don't have a culture of safety in your school, you can have all the lockdowns and metal detectors and everything, and it's not going to work. So they really say that this whole idea of culture and social emotional and emotional intelligence really is so important. And I'm going to move on, because I can sit here and talk for 2 hours about education. But people believe now that teaching children cognitive skills on how the brain works, starting in 3rd and 4th grade.
Garden State Parkway, local South Sayreville, and Garden State.
Whoops. Don't worry, it's So teaching kids those skills so that they can catch themselves before they start acting out is really, really, really important. And so anyway, that's a subject for another time. So of course, this is the old model. And so a lot of us, we're still stuck in that model. So the new reality is learners can learn almost anything, anytime, anywhere, with anyone. So this is this educational shift. And what is the educational shift? The shift does, and I go into schools and I talk to educators, and the biggest question that no one seems to be asking is, what do you mean by learning? What does that look like, right? So we did a study, we didn't, but someone did a study. You probably all heard of Lawrenceville. It's a very prestigious school down in South Jersey, an independent school. We did a study, and we conducted a test with all the students that were in a particular subject in June, after their study time was done. And in June, all the students scored 87. They did great. Then we gave the same test 4 months later, and they all got 58. What happened? What did they learn? So this is really critical about what does learning mean, and what are we doing in our schools, right? For more than 75 years, studies have consistently found that only a small fraction of what is learned in the classroom is retained, even a year after learning. When the stuff that is not being taught does not relate to the inherent goals of the students, it will be forgotten. And that's where this partnership between K-12, higher ed, community colleges, and businesses is so important, because we've got to make it relevant. And if we don't make it relevant, we're just spinning our wheels. So productive learning is where the process engenders and reinforces wanting to learn more. So if you're a student, if you see your student just wanting to learn more, they're learning. They're engaged. They see a light at the end of the tunnel. That's, if you talk to a lot of the, I know we've done this other study where we looked at a lot of the exit interviews of students who drop out of college and drop out of community college. And the question is, well, why? And the answer was, the majority of the time was, I didn't see where I was going. There was no light at the end of the tunnel. Why am I doing this? So this is another thing. So under what conditions do people learn more? So if I were to ask you, this audience, under what conditions do people really learn? I'd pretty much say you come up with this list, right? Is there anything else on that list that is not there that you would think? It's a pretty good list, right? What you wouldn't say is this, okay? Which, unfortunately, in a lot of areas, is what we're doing, right? So, we have to change. We have to change our goals. So this is like what I want to see happen in my classroom, or in my school, or in my district. I want our kids to be so enthusiastic they don't want to be anywhere else but in school learning, because they know that's what they need. And we did a study, there was another study done, the department did, where in the United States, where we asked tens of thousands of kids, why they're going to school, whether they were in K-12 or high school, K-12 or college. And 92% of them said, because I want to get a job, right? So if we're not showing them, while they're in K-12, what a job looks like, if we're not connecting them to what a college looks like, bringing them there, physically getting them out of the classroom, shame on us. And so this is going to segue us very nicely into what Junior Achievement does. And I volunteer for Junior Achievement. I've been doing it for years because when I was on the state board, when I started hearing about this idea of soft skills, I just thought that, every student should have this. This is as important as math and language arts. So these are big lists, and I don't expect, we're not going to read all this, but these are lists of things we are committed to as educators, right? I mean, authentic engagement, helping our students develop their sense of identity, positive self-exploration and growth, the whole student, right? And, as much as I'd like to hear that we're #1 based on NAEP scores, and, that, what are we measuring? What are we measuring? We're measuring how good we take a test. We're not measuring our social emotional skills. We're not measuring how good we communicate. And when we have we rate our schools in New Jersey, we use a process called CUSAC. K-12 teachers know all about that. What are we measuring then? Not all of it, but majority is how they take a test. And that is only a small slice of the whole child, right? When we want children to walk out that door in 12th grade, we want them to be communicators. We want them to be change agents. We want them to be able to sit down in a conversation with a diverse group of people that all have diverse ideas and be able to come out with that solution. Look at how we try to do that as adults. Look at the current landscape. It is just, it's frightening. It really is. And then what gets in the way of this? It's really interesting because if you look at some of these things, if we go down to the next slide, it talks about us adults sitting in the room, right? We get in our own way of getting what we really want for kids. We get in our own way. We have all these ideas. We don't want to be intellectually soft. We want, the conversation that my parents started that every child that walks out of 12th grade's got to go to college is over. It is over. 53% of the jobs in this state in 3 years are going to be middle school skills jobs that do not require a 4-year degree. There's 50,000 of those jobs right now. If you go down to NJBIA, where I was this morning, 50,000 of those jobs are unfilled right now. Someone was mentioning about plumbing and carpentry. My plumber makes 6 figures a year, and I can't get a hold of him. He's raising 5, he's got 5 kids. He's doing great. But we turned away 17,000 kids from our VOTEC schools this year because we didn't have room. So just get your arms around all that. It's just we got work to do. So our commitments to our students are in many cases at cross purposes with our commitments to ourselves. Us adults have all these ideas of what we want, but it's really not what's best for our kids. And we really have to look at that and get out of our own way. So, in school, the most important thing these days is to learn how to learn. Knowledge is not important anymore as how to apply it. Memorization within discrete disciplines of subject matter is history. It's gone. That doesn't work anymore. And for me, technologies come and go, but character and understanding yourself will always be important. Yes, sir.
And with the change of technology, the need to relearn those things are going to be important. So understanding how oneself needs to learn as a consequence of rapidly changing technology is an absolute, it's a must.
It's a total must. And if we're not teaching our kids how to learn and the critical thinking and the problem solving and to solve problems they've never seen before, shame on us because we're going to be in a tough position in 2 or 3 years. It's changing so fast. So we're moving into what we look at is in terms of skills that employers are looking for. This came from the Future Jobs Report, World Economic Forum, and you just look at it. That's what they're looking for. Again, we all have to know math, and if you want to be a mathematician, we've got AP courses. You can specialize in college. Algebra 2 is not on that list, all right? Now, I'm not suggesting here at all that we should diminish academics. I am just suggesting that the things that we're going to be talking about are more foundational than academics. Because you can again, be straight A student, but if you do not have these soft skills, you're just not going to succeed in life. Or you're going to have a better chance if you do. So at Junior Achievement, one of the things we do, we have what's called a college and career workshop. And we take students, we were there this morning at New Jersey Business Industry in Trenton. We had 50 students from Trenton High School, traditional public high school, there, and we go through this. That these are the 4 C's that employers are looking for: critical thinking, collaboration, communication, creativity. Of course, the list goes on. There's other soft skills that are very important, and we teach them through exercises. And it's only 4 or 5 hours, but it just gets their appetite whet onto what these things are and how to work together. And there's a whole list of things that we need to really add to our day-to-day work in K-12. Financial literacy. How do you balance your checkbook? What's going to happen when you step out into the workplace? It's so important. How do you walk into an interview, right? One of the things we do in these workshops, we have a mock job interview. And we sort of do the bad interview skills, and then we do what looks good. And just teaching our students, how do you shake someone's hand and look them in the eye? How do you dress for a job interview, right? How do you go in and talk about yourself? What's your elevator pitch? All these simple things that seem so simple, we need to be teaching day to day in our K-12 world. So everybody in this room knows what these things are, and we talk to the students about them and explain, what they look like through these exercises. And the handouts on your table will show you those. And again, there's collaboration, teamwork, and high-performance team. So if you look at these handouts, we gave you 3 handouts. The first one is career-ready practices from the New Jersey Department of Education. So this is a bunch of standards that we have down at the NJCCC that we do. And it's important to note, if you're interested, down at Trenton, we have the Department of Education. There are 800 people that work there, and we have a commissioner who we just got confirmed by the Senate Judiciary Committee, Dr. Repollet from Asbury Park. And we also have the State Board of Ed. And the State Board of Ed has 13 members, and they pretty much everything that the governor wants and everything the department wants has to come through the State Board of Ed and get approved. So we develop standards, right? So there's a huge difference, as you all in this room know, between standards and curriculum. So in New Jersey, we have this great thing called Home Rule. And Home Rule, we have 586 school districts in New Jersey. Some would say that's a lot. And what we do in Trenton is we put out these standards and say, all right, each district, based on your culture and climate and your community, you develop the curriculum to teach the students these standards. And actually, if you think about it, that works really, really well. I don't know if many of you know what the term place-based education is, but the idea of using your community as a source of curriculum and having the school be a mirror of your community has been shown for 40 years to be really, really powerful. And so we're set up perfectly to do that. We're set up perfectly to do that in New Jersey with these 586 school districts. But some need to be consolidated, we all know that, and we'll see how that goes. It's a big conversation, not for today. So, well, that's the end of my slide presentation. But so, what we did here, so we have two sets of tools. These are just examples of what we do in Junior Achievement. So just imagine yourself sitting at a table with 7 students from Patterson, Jersey City, Newark, Trenton, Camden, Orange, wherever, and you're the mentor sitting right there, and we're going to start talking about communication, right? So we have this conflict management sheet, and we talk about some of the important things that students should do when they're in the workplace, and these are really good for life, really, and I'm sure they're good, I enjoy this stuff. So, choosing your words carefully, nonverbal communication, active listening. How many of us just sit there and wait for the other person to stop talking so we can get our point of view in, right? And you don't hear anything that the other person says. When communicating and writing, remember to reread. Gosh, we tell our students, before you press send on that text or that email, take a deep breath, right? Because guess what? Once you press send, it is out there forever. And a lot of students just don't get that, right? And they don't understand the power that's in their words. And they press that send button, and then all of a sudden, a half an hour later, they go, oh my gosh, I should have done that. I know we adults do all that all the time. And so, it's taken me 65 years to figure this out. Just take a pause and just, I can even come back in an hour the next day before I send an email. And definitely have one of my coworkers look at it as well and say, what do you think about this? And staying positive and calm. That's just you just watch people in conversation get agitated, right? And one of the really interesting things that this work does, it helps students understand you can't, how to not take things personally. How many of us in this room take things personally? Let it get to us, right? When it doesn't even matter. Our little mind up here, that thing that talks to you the moment you get up, that's talking to you right now while I'm talking to you, that thing makes up a lot of stories. And before you know it, you wound up this whole story that may or may not be true, and then you end up living your life based on what you make up. And so talking to students about this is really fascinating because, sometimes it's the first time they've heard about it. And then, of course, our students are really good at multitasking. And a lot of us, I'm old school, so if I'm with a student and I'm interviewing a student, and they're, on their cell phone and on their computer and stuff, that doesn't work for me. And so, that idea of really looking the other person in the eye and trying to figure out how to be present is really, really good. And then on the other side of the page, we try to tell the students, what communication looks like, what conflict looks like, and what conflict management looks like, and how you do that. How do you manage your own conflict? And then if you open the conflict management profiles up, we have the good conflict management ideas on the left, and on the right we have the poor ones. And it's just great because what we do is, we sit down and as a mentor, we always have a mentor. So if we go into, let's say we're in Newark, we go to Prudential. So we'll go into Prudential, and we'll have, probably anywhere from 30 to 100 students come to Prudential, and they'll all sit in a place like this, if you're a big conference room, and we'll have employees from Prudential sitting at each of the tables. And here's an employee that sometimes, grew up in Newark or Patterson or wherever, and was in high school just like these kids around the table. He can look them in the eye and go, I was right where you were, 10 years ago. Look where I am now. I got an internship. I ended up getting a job here. I'm supporting a family now. And this idea of hope and purpose for kids in K-12 is so important. That's where culture and climate comes in. Giving our students hope and a sense of purpose that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And so it's great because when they read these, they go, oh, I do that, oh, I do that, oh, I do that, just the idea that, the toxic words and, how many times do you say when you're in conversation, whatever, right? Where you're talking to somebody, maybe your wife, your husband, or your boyfriend, girl will say, you always do that, or you never do this, it's just, it's fascinating, and you just learn a lot. So we have each of the students read stuff on the left, and then we have them read the stuff on the right. And then what we do is from each table we pick a team, and 2 people come up, and we do a sort of like a little skit. And then typically the skit is, I'm in a cell phone store, I'm the salesman, and you're just bought a cell phone from me. Brought it home, doesn't work. You come back, I want a new one, whatever. And the kids do, okay, they take the good, and they usually do the bad one first. And they start, yelling and screaming at each other, and it's really great. And everyone's clapping and laughing. And then they do the good one, and it's just like, wow, what a difference. And they just get this taste of what good communication looks like, and how to stay out of your, brain and really remain, in a present and calm way when you're having a conversation with somebody else who you might disagree with. And so we feel this is really, really powerful. And the good news for teachers in the K-12 world, teaching soft skills, teaching social emotional skills is not a separate class, it's not a separate subject. You embed it in your teaching, in math, language arts, science, everything. It's embedded right in there. There are possibilities and examples of all these things that come up every day in every class, whether it's physical education, music, or everything in between. It's really powerful, and it's something, of course, that we have to now take a step back up and start talking to our educational colleges that are training our teachers and talk about, this is important work that you have to do, and we have to start making that, a priority for us, so that when we're teaching these things and we're dealing with the stress that happens in our K-12 world, and we've got issues where kids are acting out, how do you deal with that? Because, we're coming from, an atmosphere of zero tolerance where, if I throw an eraser at you, principal calls the police. Guess where I end up? In the juvenile justice system. Not in school where I belong. And, that's the school to prison pipeline. That's the basis of everything. And how do we, if you examine all the complaints, and we've done this on this juvenile justice task force memo, if you examine all the complaints that happen in a school district that ended up in the prosecutor's office or in the police department, 70% of them could be handled in school. They're just little stuff. Hey, listen, you bring a knife to school, you bring a gun to school, we're calling the police, done. We got it. But how can we deal with all these other issues in school and keep our kids out of the juvenile justice system? Yes?
Another big roadblock I see, I work in an urban school district in a high school. And
What school?
New Brunswick High School.
Nice.
A lot of kids will say, how do you get them away from what they're hearing at home? I mean, you don't know how many students say, well, my mother told me if she says something to me, I can beat her ass.
Right.
Well, your mother said they think my mother said it was okay, so
Right.
it's okay. That's the biggest
Yeah.
hurdle.
Right. So, clearly in this new vision of education and in this area where we're really talking about school is no longer just a school, right? Hello. Hi, this is Christy Ty from Junior Achievement, my co-presenter. If you think that your school is in this little cocoon and it's only a school, you're going to fail, right? School is community. Community is parents. And if we don't involve our parents to tell them what we're telling our kids, again, shame on us. It's just not going to work. And then the long range thing, listen, I grew up in the 70s, right? We had a revolution back then. We thought everything was going to change right away. We made three major mistakes, right? We targeted my parents, didn't work. We thought everything was going to happen tomorrow, didn't work. And we had an agenda. And we thought we knew everything and we were going to tell everybody what it was. Look what happened. We got the 80s. It didn't work. And so, could you imagine if we had re-envisioned education back then? We'd be in a totally different place now. If we had thought about, really talking about kids about what does it mean to have an ethical relationship with another human being. So there's a short-term solution, getting our parents involved, but the long-term solution is you educate a group of K-12 now, and guess what? In 10 years, they're in charge, right? They're making the decisions. So it's a generational change. The problem is our political system is set up that every 4 years things change, and every 4 to 8 years you get a new guy come in and say, oh no, that was ridiculous. We're going to do it my way, and then you wonder why everybody down in Trenton is apathetic. Because it just goes over and over again. We don't give it time enough. And I told Governor Murphy, I met him a year and a half ago when he just jumped into the race, and I said, are you going to be the guy that does something in your administration, but it's not going to, the next guy's going to take credit for it? Are you going to be that guy? And he said, yeah, I'm going to be that guy. So I was very, very enthusiastic about that. And that's what we have to do. We have to put the stake in the ground today, and most of what we do, we won't get the credit for it, because we're going to see it in 10 years. Yes, sir.
You're just talking about state, and you're talking about everything. Having come into education late, about 15 years ago, I knew getting involved. We need to get the stakeholders, the community, the students, the parents, and the administration. We all have to be on the same page, and that's from a K-12 standpoint. Well, now I'm in community college, teaching prospective teachers how to teach math, and none of them want to teach math, which is a shame. But they have to understand that we still have to get the stakeholders involved, and the stakeholders can be a community organization like Junior Achievement or 4-H or Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. there are more, from what I understand, there are more Boy Scout and Girl Scout troops in urban areas now than ever before because they know how to do it. So we need to follow how they do it to get that going because like you said, in 10, 15 years, they're running the place.
That's right.
And they're going to be taking care of me.
Correct, correct. Yes, ma'am.
I also think to the young lady's point, with referencing favorable attitudes toward native norms, it's in addition to getting the parents involved, it's also an opportunity to teach our young people that may be appropriate out in the street or in your hood or wherever you are, but you also have to learn how to navigate different situations and circumstances and be able to really talk about what's appropriate and what's not appropriate, or better yet, in a way that they understand that, okay, that's going to work there, but let me show you how this, where that behavior is going to get you when you do it here.
That is a great
And I
comment.
have found that when I worked, so I was born and raised in Camden and then worked in Camden for a long time, so I understood when they would come in and be like, yo, Mr. Tamika, that's not going to work. And I'd be like, yo, I feel you, but you can't do it right here. Because you can't here, this is what the outcome is going to be.
Right.
All right, we can deal with what's going to happen when we go home tonight, but let's talk about how we're going to handle it here. And we actually use that strategy in dealing with a lot of gang issues that were occurring, and how do we establish, all right, I know how y'all get down in the hood. I get that, but how can we get down? This is how we get down in school.
Right.
And how can y'all help me with that? And can we establish some type of boundaries where we're going to respect each different place that you go to, and whatever those rules or those regulations or whatever those boundaries are. So I think that's a really important conversation to have in schools, especially when you're in a Newark or a New Brunswick or a Camden or a Trenton. That's a real conversation.
You're so right. And when we have these workshops and we're talking about, how do you go in for a job interview? The first thing we say is, listen, I know it's cool to dress like that. That's great. You want to dress like that with your friends and talk like that with your friends? Be my guest. But if you try to do that and walk in and get a job, it's not happening. It's just not happening. You've got to understand what world you're stepping into and how to deal with that. So that's just a great point. I'll just go over here and then, yes.
I think for the K through 12 system, when we talk a lot about our students and what our students do, but I think that as educators, we need to continue to train ourselves because, every generation comes with different issues. And I think that what we need to keep in mind is how are we training ourselves to deal with these situations like you said? Are we doing enough in the department? Are we doing enough in the school? Are we training ourselves to reevaluate what we're doing with our students? Is what we're doing working? Besides them, doing well in these exams, doing well in the state exams, once the school doesn't do well, you're looked on like, okay, why did we get all these low scores? But they don't really see the issues, which is the students acting out, the students not going to class, they don't want to learn.
Yep.
So are we looking at our environment? Why is it that they don't want to learn? Are we setting our students up for success not only in the classroom and with the material, but within the school environment?
No, I hear you.
Bullying is huge K-12 system. A lot of teachers are like, bullying is nothing. I mean, it's not a big deal, but now in this generation, it's a huge deal. So are we looking at little things like that to help our students succeed and learn? Are they safe? Do they feel safe?
Right.
These are things that are kind of overlooked, which I think contributes a lot to the issues that we face in the K-12 system.
And, well said. And the QSAC measurement we use, it does measure, how well you're taking that test. That's a big part of it. And then it labels the school, and then, you just get this, your culture gets affected by that. And we have to change that. We totally have to change it. And, just imagine if we spent 12 years educating our K-12 population about what does it mean to have an ethical relationship between you and I. What does that look like? How do you do that? In 12 years, we wouldn't need an anti-bullying law because we would know we just don't do that, right? Just like we know we just don't do other things. And the good news is we've got a whole system set up, ready to do it. We've got all the schools, we've got all the teachers. We just got to change the outcome. We just got to say, this is what we want. But for some reason, it seems so simple, it's just not happening. Yes, do you have a question?
Well, I was going to add something to what she said now. I think a big issue, too, is the proper PD isn't offered to teachers by their districts.
Sure.
We spend hours and hours and hours learning about the new student system or this when we're not learning how to keep up with these children and what they're dealing with
Yep.
and at times and the new skills that they need. So if the teachers aren't being taught how to teach the skills, how are the kids going to know?
Exactly. And, we're the models, us adults. And if we're not modeling that behavior,
And it's accountability too is something that's not taught. It's always the teacher says it's the kid's fault. The parent says it's the teacher's fault. It's always somebody else's fault why the student is not performing well, why the school's not performing well.
yes, sir.
I'm new to teaching. I retired from corporate life 35 years. So getting into teaching, I had to learn and understand some of these concepts. But I feel that the issue is a systemic issue across the board. We need to get educators to understand that there's a different paradigm that's out there, a different dynamic, and how we alter the way we teach so that we're on board. I'm also area chair of the business department, and my criticism of our business department, it looked more like the 1980s than it did the 2000s. And so moving that entire program to the 21st century with the kind of course material that reflects where this is going has become a very difficult process because it has to be systemic across all the platforms, all the disciplines that are out there. And that's the level of frustration, is getting everybody on the bus at the same time to make that
Believe me.
move. How do we do that?
I hear you. It's,
How do we do that?
I came out of business when I went to the State Board of Ed, when I was sitting and getting interviewed by Governor Christie. I'm like, oh, this will be simple. We'll just do this, 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 and this, and we'll get there. And he's like, if it was that simple, we'd be there.
We're
And I
always
just-
moving the boulder with our nose.
I know.
We're moving the rock with our
It's
nose.
tough. Yes, sir.
I'm just thinking, I'm asking myself if with the 10-page recommendation from the transition team to Governor Murphy, do we have a hope in 7 years, in the next 4 years or 8 years regarding changes? Because the direction of education and about so many things about just quantifying numbers, tests, and also about this bullying law who can take all your time if you are in the case. Can we be hopeful about the changes? Because
I-
as an educator and a high school counselor,
Right. Thank you
I
for the
did-
work you do.
I did a career change and my perspective is different. And I'm very critical of the system because I believe in holistic education, not just testing and numbers and reports. That's what administrators care about, what the superintendents care about, and other people, not about you getting the chance. So I hope I leave this today with some hope, to be honest with you.
Well, I will tell you, having been through the first administration and now talking to Governor Murphy, his people, writing the report with a committee of 40 of stakeholders from everywhere. It was a 40-member transition committee that we do have hope. Governor Murphy is very progressive. He wants to let the department do its work. We are taught in that report, and it's public. You can go on the governor's website and see it. Public report. It's got 10 or 12 things to do, and it all centers around the whole child, taking our testing, and we got to listen. In the K-12 world, we have to have a standardized test. We get $900 million from the federal government for our Title I and Title IV, and it's for the new Every Student Succeeds Act, and they still require math and language arts tests. So we got to do that, but we can certainly shrink the time and the effort that we put into that and open up the school day for other stuff. And the report, you will see, really addresses that. Now, having said that, that's 80% of the battle. The other 20% is implementation. Are we going to get there? So I can't promise 100%, but I feel hopeful. I feel very, very hopeful. I'm very progressive. I started my own school. I started a school that was based on ethics. And we teach a whole curriculum that's based on core virtues. And we teach kids what does it mean to have an ethical relationship with another student. And I am very hopeful, based on my conversations with the governor and his policy team, that this is where we want to go. There's a lot of factors, as you know, that are outside of the control of people when you want to do that. But I am hopeful.
Gosh, thanks everybody for being here today. We really appreciate it and listening to
this message about 21st century skills. This is kind of what we do at junior achievement. That's what we've been doing for 100 years, and we keep kind of updating things based on what we hear from teachers and students and businesses. And we're in the business of creating business education partnerships in the state. So I just walked in now because I came from one of our programs that we were doing. I had 30 Trenton High School students in a place of business where we connected them with mentors, and we did these exercises. And can I tell you, these kids were phenomenal. They were so good. They were engaged, and they were polite, and were excited, and they had great conversations with the adults at their table, and it was a fantastic day. So we kind of we like to be the experts in connecting businesses with education, and we do it for free because we get funding from corporations. We don't get any government funding, so we're not tied into any of that piece. We get money from New Jersey's biggest businesses, and they like to work with us, and because you're teaching their future workforce pipeline, and they want to make sure that those kids are prepared when they walk in their door for their first jobs. So they really kind of count on us to bridge that gap between education and business. I don't want to talk a lot. I'd rather have all of you kind of take a look at these. Did everybody get? Oh, you did this one?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. All right. So isn't this great? So aren't you going to take this home and talk to your spouse and say, okay, here you go, you got to work on this, right? But this is one piece that we do for our programs. Problem solving. Okay. So if you remember that slide with the World Economic Forum, right? The top skills there, the problem solving skills. I'm sure he went into it. I won't elaborate. But this is what we guide our students through. So we can take the next. I'll keep you maybe for 5 more minutes. It's beautiful. I don't know what to do here. But we'll go through this, and I'll give you an opportunity to experience what it's like to be a student in one of our programs and what doing these career-ready practices in person look like. Okay. So does everybody? We do have a few extras. Everybody needs those here. Oh, yeah, of course. And please let me know if you need extras. We've got some more. Okay, great. So basically, we teach kids how to be creative problem solvers. And problem solving and critical thinking, that is the most valuable skill in the future, as you know, because the way things are changing so quickly, our kids are going to be solving problems that haven't even become problems yet. So we kind of go through this step, and I'll let you, for a minute, just pretend like you're a high school student. Okay? Pretend like you're a high school student. So 3 steps to problem solving. So let me ask all of you, who here thinks that they're pretty creative? Who's creative? Raise your hand if you're creative. Okay. I bet a lot more of you are creative. You might not realize it, right? Creativity is more than just drawing pictures and making music and creating artwork. Creativity is thinking up a new solution to an old problem. Right? And critical thinking combines creativity and logic. 2 things that you normally wouldn't think go together. When you combine those things, you're able to think critically, solve problems. And that is what's going to get you hired and keep you hired. That's what's going to make you a valuable employee. Being able to solve those problems. Coming up with new solutions to old problems. 3 steps to thinking critically, which are outlined here on the back of your form. Okay? I'm going to go through them real quick. So number 1, what's the first step, everybody, in thinking critically? Let's all say it together. Step 1 is what? ID the problem, right? Normally we think, well, that's obviously, we always think ID the problem first, but you know what? A lot of times we don't. So for example, say I come into this room and it's freezing, okay? I put my coat on, put my sweater on, I'm warm, problem solved, right? Then I come back tomorrow, the room's still freezing, put my sweater on, I'm warm again. Did I solve the problem?
No.
No, the problem's not that I'm cold, the problem is what?
The room is broken.
Yeah, the heater's broken, right? Air conditioning's busted. So until I go and get that fixed, I'm not going to solve my problem. You have to really think. So we teach students to kind of look at the big picture, right? All right, so second step in the problem-solving tool is what, everybody?
Analyze.
Right, analyze. This is when we get creative. This is when we do brainstorming. Every single decision you make is going to have consequences. We make decisions all day. They'll have consequences. Some are good, some are bad. You never know until you put it all out there. Brainstorm, what good can come of this, what bad can come of this. When you put it all out there and take a look at everything, that's when you can analyze and come up with your best solution, which is step 3. Choose the best solution and act on it. Okay? So, I'm going to give you a really quick scenario. Okay? Let you have a 2-minute conversation with your tables. So you can kind of see what this looks like. Okay? So I'm going to give you a scenario. Right? You have your tables. You're a team now. You're a school club. Member of a school club. You're having a fundraiser. Right? Your fundraiser is, you are selling concessions at your school's basketball game. All right, we're selling hot dogs, hamburgers, candy, and nachos. All right, 4 things: hot dogs, hamburgers, candy, and nachos. All right. So you get to the gym for your set up your snack bar. You have a little kitchen there. Open up the fridge. No hamburger patties. You got everything else, but there's no hamburger patties. Guess what? Hamburgers are your biggest seller.
Depends on where you're at.
Depends on where you're at, right?
We're gonna live in there, we're not.
I'll remember that next time I'm talking to kids from Elizabeth. No hamburger patties. Hamburgers are your biggest seller, except in your Elizabeth. Game's about to start. What do you do? Okay. So at this point, students would kind of gather in together and kind of go through this step, and you can do this here at your tables, right? What are some of the solutions you can do? How are you going to solve that problem? Right? You can go ahead and do this. Have a little conversation in front of your table. What might you do? Students, anybody have a really, really great solution to our problem? Who's got a really great solution? Yes. All right, let's hear it.
We're gonna do orders for the hamburger, you deliver them at halftime.
Okay, take orders.
We're gonna buy time.
You said take orders.
We need here.
That's not a bit.
We're gonna take orders for the hamburger, what they wanted that first quarter of the game, and deliver them by halftime. So we're gonna buy time, and we don't want them to leave, so we want to keep that going, so.
And what's the good part about it?
One, they won't leave the game, we're keeping them engaged by, they made the order, so they feel obligated to stay, and there you go.
Were there any negatives from that?
One, we don't know exactly how many burgers to purchase to bring back.
But that's an example of students learning that the positive outcomes outweigh the negative outcomes.
Absolutely.
Who else has a really good idea that they want to share? Come on, anybody come up with a really interesting menu idea?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Folks, if we're gonna take the hot dogs and add one of the other condiments to it, bundle together at the same price as the hamburger, and all that as an alternative.
Yeah. And that's what a lot of the Trenton kids did were really, really creative. They came up with all kinds of creative solutions and how to market it, right? They made, I think they had the Cyclones, the Trenton Cyclones, they made a Cyclone dog, right? They invented a new menu, they marketed it as Cyclone dog and whatever. And they recognized that they had to be transparent with customers, which was pretty cool. And then a couple of them realized, they took it a step further and said, when we do, if this happens again, we'll make sure that we don't make the same mistake twice. We'll make sure that we go in there and check the night before, that we have everything we need, and we'll delegate someone from our team to make sure that everything's in place. So certainly, things, when kids do these kinds of exercises, they're really connecting. It applies to the real world. So they're able to get more engaged because it really makes sense to them what they're doing. They know that it makes sense. So again, that's just one of the programs that we do. We have this curriculum called J Career Success that we put in a one-day workshop format, which is what I did today. We do a lot of them at county colleges. So we bring kids to a county college, we sit them all like you guys are sitting, we go through this exercise, we bring in volunteers from the community, we bring in students from the community college to be the volunteers to kind of do the activities with them, connect with them, share their own personal stories at the table. We do a mock job interview. It's a really, really great program. So if you'd like to learn more, this is just, we're having our last one of the season, one of our last ones of the season, at Rowan College of Burlington. It's already sold out. I have 250 kids coming there. We need mentors. If you want to come by and check it out, please let me know. But we do work with just about 10 to 12 colleges in the state as well as businesses. And then this is just a little one-pager of what our workshop looks like. So if you work in a community college and you're interested in bringing this to your school, please, we are always looking for schools. Right now we work with Burlington County, Sussex, and Raritan Valley, and we're always looking to expand. So please let us know. Again, we don't charge students for our program, so it's really a win-win. My business cards are here if you'd like to learn more, and I've got stickers. Right, if you want to take a sheet of stickers back with you, we have these as well. Does anybody have any questions about any of the stuff that I've done? He's the expert. But... Oh yes, and thank you. This is taken right off the DOE website. These are the career ready practices.
This is going to be implemented in the state sometime in the future?
These are already part. They're not standards, but they're practices. So these were voted on by the state board, I want to say 2014, 2015, right? And these are practices, 12 career-ready practices that can be implemented in any grade, in any class, at any time. Again, they're just guidelines. They're not standards. They're guidelines. No, they're guidelines for teachers on how to make how to make your students be more ready for the 21st century by combining all these.
I'm on the team actually.
Thank you.
It is required that you implement this in your class. It is required. It is not, but it is not, it's not a standard, it's a practice.
Right, practice. Thank you. Thank you for clearing that up. So it's not a standard, it's a practice, and it is required that teachers kind of infuse it into their daily curriculum. Right.
Starting in 16.
In 2016.
If you want to get involved, if you want to get involved with this, how would that work? Because I know the closest one is in Edison, right?
Well, our education center's in Edison, but we're in every single county except for Salem County. Salem County can go to JFL where it's closer. But we're all over. We reach 70,000 kids every year, all K-12, all those kids. So if you want to find out more about JF, you can grab one of my business cards, one of my flyers, and distribute them. Okay? And thank you for clearing that up. And we have the handouts for the CRP on the tables if you'd like to get that information. All right. So thank you all for your participation today.